The sun was rising over a tall glass tower in the center of a glowing futuristic city. Sky cars zipped past, robots cleaned the streets, and giant screens flashed with bright ads. This was Malik Corp headquarters, one of the most powerful tech companies on Earth. Inside the tower, workers rushed in and out, wearing sleek uniforms and speaking quickly into wrist-comm devices. The building was busy, loud, and full of pride. At the side entrance, a small transport pod opened. An elderly black woman stepped out. She wore plain gray clothes and carried an old janitor's bag. Her name was Mira. She moved slowly, but her eyes were sharp. She looked at every corner, every camera, every hallway. No one noticed her much. To most, she was just the new janitor. As she walked through the lobby, 2 younger employees saw her. "Who let Grandma in?" One whispered, laughing. "Maybe she's lost," said the other. Mira heard them. She didn't look back. She just walked toward the service elevator. Upstairs in the HR office, Lexa, a young assistant with a sharp voice and perfect hair, tapped through files on her glass tablet. "New janitor starts today," she said, rolling her eyes. "Name?" "Mira." "Age?" 72. She laughed and walked toward the lobby. When Mira stepped out of the elevator, Lexa was already waiting. "You're late," Lexa said, frowning. Mira looked at her calmly. "I came early. Security took some time." Lexa didn't care. "Fine. You'll clean the basement level. Floor 13. It's dirty. Hard to reach. Not many people go there." "I'll handle it," Mira said gently. Lexa handed her a dusty keycard. "Use this. And don't wander. Stay where you're told." The elevator hummed softly as Mira rode down to the basement. When the doors opened, she stepped into a cold, dim hallway. Pipes hissed from the walls. The air smelled like rust. She started cleaning right away. Her movements were slow but focused. She scrubbed corners others ignored. She wiped panels with care. She watched everything. Time passed. Then 2 young workers came down to check storage. One of them saw Mira and smirked. "Wow, look at her outfit. Straight out of a museum," he joked. The other laughed. "Is she even strong enough to lift a mop?" They walked over and knocked her mop to the floor. "Oops," one of them said with a fake smile. Mira looked at them for a long moment. Then, without a word, she picked up her mop and returned to work. Her eyes didn't blink. Her hands didn't shake. The 2 men felt strange, like they were being watched by someone not ordinary. They left quickly. Mira kept working until she noticed something. A door at the end of the hallway, steel thick, with blinking red lights. A small sign above it read, "Racetrace CTDACCS EVL7 only." She stopped and stared at it for a moment. Then she smiled, just a little. That door meant something to her. She didn't touch it. She didn't even move closer, but her mind was working. "Still here, huh?" she thought silently. Upstairs, Lexa spoke with another manager in the break room. "I don't like that woman," she whispered. "She's too quiet. Always watching. Makes me uncomfortable." The manager laughed. "She's just a janitor." Lexa shook her head. "No, she's weird. She looks like she knows something, like she's not surprised by anything." The manager shrugged. "Well, she better stay in her place. This company doesn't have time for strange old women." Back in the basement, Mira finished cleaning the hallway. She walked slowly past the Racetrace door again and nodded to herself. "Still locked? Good." As she returned to the elevator, she whispered under her breath, "He used to hide behind doors like that when he was scared." The elevator closed, and her face disappeared behind the metal doors. The next morning, Mira returned to Malik Corp headquarters. She wore the same plain gray uniform. Her shoes were old, but polished. She carried her mop and bucket with silent pride. Most people ignored her. A few whispered, a few laughed. She didn't care. She entered the service elevator. The doors were closing when suddenly a hand stopped them. A tall man in a sleek black suit stepped inside. His face was hidden behind dark glasses. His wrist comm was glowing. He looked important. He glanced at Mira, then turned to face forward. The elevator began to rise. Silence. Then, without turning, the man said softly, "You're not just a janitor, are you?" Mira looked up at him. Calm. Still. "You see too much," he added. "You've been watching the doors, the cameras, the people." Mira gave a small smile. "And you're not just an employee, are you?" The man turned his head slowly. Behind his glasses, his eyes widened. "You recognize me," he said. "I never forget a scared little boy," Mira replied, her voice low and kind. The man stepped back slightly. "Impossible." Mira looked him straight in the eyes. "Not impossible, just unexpected." Ding! The elevator stopped on level 20. The man rushed out without another word. Mira stayed inside, smiling to herself. Meanwhile, in the executive conference room, panic was brewing. That same man, Jad Malik, CEO of Malik Corp., stormed inside. He closed the door behind him and whispered, "She's here." Lexa looked up from her tablet. "Who?" "The janitor," Jared said, voice shaky. She's my mother." Gasps filled the room. The senior staff all looked confused. Lexa's face twisted in shock. "Your mother? But you said she passed away." "She left," Jared corrected. "A long time ago, after my father's trial." One of the older executives whispered, "Wait, Mira Malik, the woman who exposed the board's crimes back in the old city?" Jared nodded slowly. Lexa's face went pale. "You hired your mother as a janitor?" she asked. "I didn't hire her," Jared said. "She must have slipped in through the temp agency. I didn't know she was coming." Silence filled the room. Someone whispered, "Why now?" Jared swallowed hard. "She's watching me, testing me, like she always used to." Down in the basement, Mira cleaned a hallway near the security room. She passed by a group of guards watching camera feeds. They didn't notice her until she stopped and said, "Your hallway camera is off." One of the guards frowned. "No, it's..." He checked his screen. The camera for hall 3 was black. He fixed it. Mira nodded and walked away. One of the guards muttered, "She noticed that faster than we did." Later that day, Lexa found Mira near the lobby. "You," she said coldly. "Come with me." Mira followed her silently into a small meeting room. Lexa closed the door. Her voice was sharp. "Why are you really here?" Mira tilted her head. "To clean." "Don't play games," Lexa snapped. "You've been talking to executives, watching restricted doors, fixing cameras. Who are you spying for?" Mira looked her in the eye. "I'm not spying. I'm observing." "Observing what?" Mira walked to the window and looked down at the busy streets. Then she spoke softly. "I'm observing whether my son's company still remembers what integrity means." Lexa froze. "Your son?" Mira nodded. "Jad Malik, the CEO." Lexa took a step back, her voice trembling. "You're his mother?" Mira looked at her with calm eyes. "And you? What have you done for this company besides stepping on those beneath you?" Lexa had no words. Later, Jared sat alone in his office, thinking. His door opened. Mira walked in. "I didn't come to embarrass you," she said. Jared stood. "Then why are you here?" "I came to see if the boy I raised became the man I hoped he would," she said. Jared looked away. "You should have told me you were coming. I needed to see you in your real world, not in a clean suit, not behind titles, but here, among the people." Jared walked over and sat down. He looked tired. The next day, things at Malik Corp began to feel strange. People whispered more. Meetings ran longer. And Mira's name began spreading like wildfire. They didn't know who she really was, but they sensed something. "She's not normal," one worker said. "She walks like she owns the place," said another. "Did you see her correct the finance director yesterday?" a third whispered. "She told him the supply codes were outdated, and she was right." But Mira kept quiet. She cleaned floors, changed trash, and helped anyone who needed her without being asked. In the executive wing, Jad Malik stared at a glowing screen on his desk. It showed Mira's employee file. There was nothing suspicious. No history, no education, no address. Just a temp ID and the name, Mira Jones. She changed her last name, Jared muttered to himself. His assistant peeked in. Sir, the audit reports you asked for. Jared waved him off. Later. He leaned back in his chair. Why now, Mom? Why come back after all these years? Meanwhile, Lexa and another executive, Sloan, stood in the hallway near the HR floor. She's digging, Lexa said, her voice low. Sloan looked around. Into what? Yesterday, she asked me about the old server room. Who cares? It's sealed. Lexa shook her head. Not to someone like her. Don't forget who she used to be. Sloan looked nervous. You think she's here to bring Jared down? Lexa stared at a security camera, or expose something we've been hiding. That afternoon, Mira walked through the tech lab level. A young intern named Jules dropped his tablet. It shattered. Oh no, he whispered, nearly in tears. A supervisor walked by and shouted, That's coming out of your pay, idiot. Jules looked crushed. Mira knelt beside him, picking up the pieces gently. She handed him the memory chip. This is what matters, not the shell. Jules stared at her. Thank you, ma'am. She gave him a small smile. One day he'll design better tools than these. He looked confused. How do you know I design? She just winked and walked away. Upstairs, Jad entered the main boardroom. He looked tired. He faced his executives. I want to speak clearly, he said. That janitor, she's not just some employee, she's my mother. Gasps filled the room. Jad raised a hand. She was once the sharpest mind in corporate justice. She exposed the old Malik board's crimes 20 years ago. One man asked, Why didn't you tell us? Because I didn't know she was coming, Jad replied. Sloan shifted nervously. And now? Jad looked out the window. Now, I think she's testing me. And maybe all of you. That night, Mira moved quietly through the halls. Everyone had gone home. She walked toward the restricted ACES door in the basement. She pulled a small device from her pocket, an old Malik security override tool. Click. The door opened. Inside was a room full of dusty old servers, covered in cables and blinking lights. She pulled out a tiny chip from her coat, slotted it in. Data began to load. On screen, old Malik board, hidden files, sealed 20 years ago. Her eyes narrowed. Names began to appear. Executives, offshore accounts, illegal AI testing. One file blinked, Project Horizon, active. Mira's face went cold. She whispered, They lied. Just then, footsteps echoed outside the room. She quickly pulled the chip out and stepped into the shadows. Lexa walked in. She glanced around, then checked a corner tablet hidden behind a panel. She typed quickly. The screen read, Delete all data. Mira watched from the shadows. Lexa clicked yes. Nothing happened. Error, the screen said. Suddenly, Mira's voice came from the dark. You should have been smarter. Lexa spun around. You. Mira stepped out slowly. Even your cover-ups are lazy. Lexa's eyes were wide. You have no right. Mira raised her chin. I have every right, because this company still carries my name. Lexa stood frozen in the middle of the restricted server room. The lights flickered slightly. Mira stepped forward, slowly but firmly. Her old janitor uniform looked out of place now. She didn't look like a janitor. She looked like someone who didn't fear anything. Lexa forced a laugh. You're just a cleaner. You don't belong in here. Mira tilted her head. You really believe that? Lexa's hand moved to the small panic button on her wristband. Mira's voice dropped. Try it, and this whole room goes public. Lexa paused. What do you mean? I copied everything, Mira said, holding up a small black data chip. All your dirty secrets. Project Horizon. The bribes. The missing workers. Do you really want this to hit the press? Lexa's smirk faded. Upstairs, Jed Malik sat in his office, watching the live feed from the security camera hidden in the server room. His face was pale. She found it, he whispered. He picked up the phone to call security, then stopped. Instead, he pressed a button on his desk and said into the intercom, "Cancel all reports. No one enters the basement. Not yet." He leaned back in his chair, staring at the screen. His mother stood tall, unafraid. Back in the basement, Lexa was trying to regain control. "This company doesn't belong to you anymore, Mira," she snapped. "I never needed it to belong to me," Mira said calmly. "But I built it. I kept the old board from destroying it. I raised Jer to lead it." Lexa crossed her arms. "Then why come back like this? Dressed like a janitor?" "To see who respects the lowest worker," Mira said. "That tells me everything about the people in power." Lexa's mouth opened slightly, but no words came. Suddenly, Sloan appeared at the doorway panting. "I saw the alert," he gasped. "What's going on?" Mira didn't move. She turned her head slightly. "You knew about Project Horizon too." Sloan stepped back. I only followed orders." Mira walked toward him slowly. "Then you'll be first to confess when this goes to court," she said. He raised his hands. "Wait, please. We were told it was shut down." "But it wasn't," Mira said. "People went missing. Workers got hurt. And you kept the files buried." Lexa growled. "You don't have proof." Mira raised the chip. "This is the proof." Suddenly, the door opened again. This time, it was Jared. Everyone turned toward him. His voice was calm, but his face was serious. "Mom," he said quietly, "put the chip down." Mira studied him for a long moment. Then she lowered her hand, but didn't let go of the chip. "Do you know what they've been doing behind your back?" she asked him. Jared stepped forward. "I know. I just found out. And I didn't stop it in time." Lexa shouted, "She threatened me, Jared." Mira raised an eyebrow. "You tried to erase the evidence." Jared held up a hand. "Enough." He turned to Sloan and Lexa. "You're both suspended, effective immediately." Lexa's eyes widened. "You're siding with her." "I'm siding with the truth," Jared said firmly. "You lied. You risked lives. And you mocked the one person who built everything we stand on." Lexa stormed out, fuming. Sloan followed silently, defeated. Mira finally looked at her son. "You knew I was here." Jared nodded. "The moment I saw your name." "Then why wait?" she asked. "Because I needed to see who would fail the test." Mira gave a small smile. "You always were clever." Jared looked around the room. "But what do we do now?" Mira handed him the chip. "Expose it. Clean this company. From the top down." He nodded. "And you?" "I'll finish cleaning the building," she said with a grin. "The floors. And the people." They both laughed softly. Later that night, Mira returned to her janitor closet. She opened her old locker. Inside were two things: a worn family photo and her old company badge. Mira Malik, co-founder and director, retired. She ran her fingers across the name. Outside, the building lights shone bright across the city. The janitor? No one would ever see her the same again. But her job wasn't finished. The next morning, the company building buzzed with quiet tension. Rumors spread like wildfire. "The janitor is the CEO's mom." "No way. She's just an old cleaner." "I heard she exposed a top-secret project last night." People whispered in corners. No one knew what was true. But everyone watched Mira. She moved through the halls like always, quiet, calm, mop in hand. But now, no one dared laugh. No one dared speak down to her. Upstairs, Jared sat in the main boardroom. The senior executives looked nervous. He placed the black chip from Mira on the glass table. "This," he said, "is the evidence my mother collected." Gasps filled the room. "You let her spy on us," one director said. "I let her see the truth," Jared replied. Another board member stood up. "If this gets out, the company's reputation will collapse." "Better that than keeping secrets," Jared said coldly. He clicked the remote. A hologram filled the room, showing confidential files, Project Horizon, surveillance footage, emails, financial records. Silence. Then, shame. Downstairs, Mira entered the staff kitchen. Two of the same employees who had mocked her on her first day quickly stood up. Ms. Myra, Amaham, we didn't know. She raised a hand. Stop. They froze. You treated me like I was less than you. That's all I needed to know. One of them stammered, we were just joking. She looked them in the eye. I wasn't. They both sat down, red-faced. That afternoon, Jed walked Mira to the company's rooftop garden. He looked tired, but his eyes were focused. I've shut down Project Horizon, he said. Fired Lexa and Sloan. Mira nodded. What about the rest? We're launching a full audit. Every project, every team. Mira smiled faintly. Good. Jad hesitated. There's something else. He pulled out a folder. Inside, an offer letter. Come back as board advisor, he said. Officially. Mira looked at the paper, then up at her son. I already have a job, she said, holding up her mop. Jad laughed softly. You're serious? Yes, she said. But I'll advise, from the basement. He blinked. Why? Because if you want to know what's broken in a building, she said, you ask the janitor first. The next day, Mira went to the lobby. A new group of interns was starting. Young faces, nervous energy. She smiled as she watched them. One girl looked confused and dropped her access card. Mira picked it up and handed it to her. Thank you, ma'am, the girl said politely. Mira nodded. You're welcome. Remember, how you treat people matters. The girl smiled. Yes, ma'am. Meanwhile, Jared stood before a press conference outside the building. Flashes went off. He took a deep breath. Our company recently uncovered internal corruption, he said. But thanks to one brave woman, we stopped it in time. Who is she? A reporter shouted. Jared smiled. My mother, he said, and our building's janitor. Reporters gasped. What's her name? He looked directly at the camera. Mira Malik. Back inside, staff gathered around TVs. The announcement played live. When they saw her name and face, a hush fell over the room. Some smiled. Some lowered their heads. But one thing changed forever. They would never see Mira as just a janitor again. That evening, Mira walked the halls one last time with her cleaning cart. She paused outside the CEO's office. Jed opened the door. You sure you want to keep cleaning floors? He asked. She smiled. Every floor I clean teaches someone something. He nodded. Then I'll make sure we all keep learning. Mira turned off the lights, one by one, as she walked down the hallway. In the quiet, her footsteps echoed, soft, steady, proud. To be continued in part 6, the final reveal. 2 weeks later, the entire company gathered in the main auditorium. Everyone, from the highest executives to the newest interns, sat quietly, waiting. A large screen glowed at the front. Jared stepped onto the stage. He wore a sharp black suit, but his eyes looked serious. Before we begin, he said, there's someone you all need to hear from. The lights dimmed. Footsteps echoed down the side stairs. Everyone turned their heads. It was Mira, still in her janitor's uniform. Some workers stood. Others whispered, surprised. Why was she on stage? Why would a janitor speak here? Mira took the mic, calm and steady. Her voice was soft, but the room fell silent. Some of you know me as the janitor, she said. Some of you just looked away when I walked past. A few people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. But what you didn't know is that I was watching, listening, and learning. She paused. I've worked in many places in my life. I've cleaned after doctors, lawyers, and even judges. She looked out over the crowd. But never have I seen a company so divided by ego. A hush fell. Some of you judge me by my age, my skin, my job title. She stepped forward slightly. But the truth is, I didn't come here to clean your floors. She looked at Jared. I came here to clean the rot. Gasps filled the room. Jared stepped beside her. She's not just our janitor, he said. She's my mother. And she saved this company. Mira handed him the mic back and stepped aside. Jeb clicked the remote. A screen behind him showed New COD of on DUCT. We are building a new culture, he announced. One based on respect, from the top to the bottom. He pointed to Mira. And from now on, every department will rotate monthly to work with janitorial teams. People looked stunned. Yes, even the managers. One executive whispered, "We have to clean?" Jared overheard. He smiled. Yes, everyone cleans, everyone serves. Later that evening, Mira stood in the empty boardroom, looking out at the city lights. Jared walked in quietly. "You were incredible today," he said. Mira smiled. "I didn't say anything special." "You didn't have to," he said. They saw the truth. She turned toward him. "I raised you to never forget where you come from," she said. "Don't forget where others come from either." He nodded. "I won't." The next morning, something strange happened. Employees came early, wearing simple blue uniforms. One by one, they joined Mira on the lower floors. They mopped. They scrubbed. They carried trash. They laughed. They talked. And for the first time in a long time, the company felt human. People didn't just see Mira anymore. They learned from her. Weeks later, the company was featured in every major news outlet. The janitor who changed a corporation. From mop to mission, a CEO's mother saves a company. Mira received invitations to speak at conferences, schools, and even government events, but she turned them all down, except one. One evening, she arrived at a large hall packed with young students. She took the mic and looked at them warmly. "I used to think being powerful meant having money or a title," she said. "But true power is knowing who you are and never lowering your worth, even when others do." The crowd stood in applause. Tears welled in her eyes, not because of the praise, but because they listened. Back at the company, a plaque was placed in the lobby, in honor of Mira Malik, the one who cleaned the dirt and revealed the truth. And just below that, "Respect everyone. You never know who they truly are." As for Mira, she still came to work every day. Same uniform, same quiet smile. But now, when she walked down the halls, everyone stood a little straighter. Everyone said hello. And everyone remembered the day the janitor changed everything.